Hi there. I'm going to talk about the game made. So it's continuing the metaphor from the last chapter about the card game. So the game made. So I'm just going to tell you a couple things to look for. This is not a really hard chapter to understand. So pay attention to the conversation between Jerry Cruncher and Mr. Lorry. Um, Lori is thinking first about the bank and the bank's reputation and what that has to do with Jerry. Look at the characterization of both. Some of it may surprise you, and some of it may be in line with what we've been talking about as far as characterization goes. And then at the end of, hi Bo, at the end of their conversation, do you agree with both of Mr. Lorry and Jerry Cruncher's decisions? So what happens to Jerry and basically how did Mr. Lorry handle himself as far as the reputation of the bank goes. The next part that I want you to focus on is the conversation between Sydney Carton and Mr. Lorry. And this becomes a huge part of Sydney Carton's transformation. So pay attention to how the answers that Mr. Lorry gives to Sydney Carton about living his life, leading a meaningful life. Why is Sydney asking Mr. Lorry these questions? How does Mr. Lorry answer them? And then what does Sydney Carton do with the inspiration of Mr. Lorry? And so lots revealed about both Sydney Carton and Mr. Lorry in this chapter. And I think that you're going to see that, there's Bo, you're going to see that Sydney Carton he's probably in a really low place, but I think we're at, he's hit rock bottom. He's trying to come up. And so he's walking through town and he mutters a familiar line to maybe some of you about the resurrection and the life. He says it over and over and over again. Look that up online. Look at that as far as, biblically, why is this a nice illusion for which Sydney Carton can fall back on. We get to also see Sydney Carton's thoughts on Lucy. He sees her at the trial. It's kind of a touching, also dark scene. Just not dark as, sad, but just, it's not a happy scene, but also a very important scene. Pay attention to biblical references. There's a lot of Christian imagery. Maybe some of this is foreshadowing. So do some of the work for that. Post these on Schoology. That way, if you know more about these illusions than other people, enlighten us. And I will also look at those. Pay attention to the trial. Are there any surprises? There should be, if you're reading the book. There is one character that has to testify against Charles Darnay. And so we'll find out more about that later in the reasons, but the themes, they keep coming at us, resurrection, secrecy, buried alive, all of these different ideas, motifs, the setting sun, night, day, we get to see how Charles Dickens is really using the imagery and the recurring themes to bring some cohesiveness, some togetherness to this book. Also some satire. See what you can pick up on that. We get to go back to the trial. And of course, Charles Dickens is always going to take his opportunity to poke fun of the justice system. The idea of doubles and the circular plot. We're going to see some familiar ideas just in a different setting. So pay attention to that. Make these part of what you're discussing in the discussion group. And then at the very end, Carton stops at a store, I guess, of sorts, to purchase some stuff. So what the heck? What's he doing? Any ideas? Anybody want to take some guesses? If you already know, do not have any spoiler alerts, but he is starting to take some action. So if you have any questions, please post them in the discussion board for Chapter 9. Do some of the legwork yourself. Try to figure some things out. Spend time with the book. Again, everything should be coming together. This is a tough book, but I think now we get the enjoyment. We get to figure everything out. So enjoy it. Bye.